Hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. Sorry about being late. My fault. I don't know why I just was, bad this morning. Okay, there we go.
I'll have to talk about that when it's your salary negotiations come up.
So Marineland is looking at breaking its property up into four parts. Welcome to Talking Niagara. It's Friday the 14th of February. And number of stories, and one of the local ones that applies, Marineland is looking at breaking its property up into 4 parcels. So they're looking at selling it. Right?
Not necessarily, if you read the article.
Well, when I said looking at selling it, but selling it was always on the plan anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had that.
And I was relying upon you, Dave.
Yes, I'm right here.
When
I looked at myself in the video, my hair was up like this, and I couldn't get it to stand down. So I had to go put some water.
That's why you were doing this.
Yeah. So I didn't realize my hair was all over the place, and it wouldn't cooperate, and I couldn't find a comb, so I just had to run up. Yeah. So what it is, it sounds like as if they're going to sell it, but it's not what it is. According to the article, they're doing severances so they can make some money on mortgages and securities for those mortgages. So they want to separate the part of the park that has the animals in it, because I'm not so sure they don't want that to be part of any security for any loans or financing.
Yeah.
So they do this severance.
Okay.
From the other parts of their land. They may eventually sever it and sell it, but that doesn't look like what's going to happen immediately. It looks like as if they're doing that to secure loans, because somebody may not want to give them a loan on the animal
portion. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so they do severances that would secure the loans.
Yeah,
which wouldn't include the animal park.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're looking for financing. So it still makes it a mystery of what's going to happen to Marineland.
Yeah, I'm concerned when I hear severancing, because severancing typically in this scenario would be to allow them, I worry would be to allow them to break the lands up and sell it off to developers.
Well, it's going to go to the Committee of Adjustments.
Yeah.
And they're going to look it over. Basically, what it looks like to me, like I got kind of fooled by the title myself. I thought, okay, they're going to split it up, and it's going to be, residents part of it, whatever. But basically, what it looks like is if they're just severing parts of it off so that they can secure loans based on those severances of the property.
Yeah. Okay.
And once the financing is repaid, the severances go away, is my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Peter Biker's saying Happy Valentine's Day, everybody in Niagara. There you go. I don't know. I'm not so keen on those kind of broad Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. That's because it's not the way we do them in UK.
You don't do Valentine's Day over there?
Not public. You don't publicly announce Happy Valentine's to everybody, right? What you do is you do it for the one you love or the one you're chasing.
Okay.
And not everybody. All right. Anyway.
When you're a little kid here, Valentine's Day doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean girl boy kind of thing. When I was a little kid in kindergarten, you gave everybody a Valentine kind of thing, and everybody gave you a Valentine in school. And then a little later on, by the time of grade 1 or 2, you kind of, that wasn't a thing anymore. Then you did start giving Valentines to your sweetie.
So once you got up to grade 8 or something like that, or maybe 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Depending upon, how you were on that particular thing. Anyway, yeah, so it's going to be So they're trying to raise cash on it. I suppose that makes sense because there will be some financiers that won't give money for the zoo.
Yeah. So the basically severances are that.
Yeah.
It appears to me that they're more likely temporary to secure loans,
Yeah.
and loan out because of the controversy of Marineland itself is probably both political and practical, not to have the loan secured. No bank would probably want to put a security on the animal thing because of its sort of controversy.
Yeah.
So, in other words, a bank then could say that I'm holding a mortgage on an empty piece of land.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else to say on that one?
No, that's it. Because there was this appearance that it was going to be severed off and sold. That article explains exactly what's really going to happen. Yeah. It still may happen down the road, but right now that's not the purpose of the severances.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. This was a Toronto case, but Landlord Tenant Board in Ontario dismissed a landlord's application to evict a tenant in Swansea, Toronto. And basically what happened, this was a corporate landlord who wanted the director's son to move in. So this was a numbered Ontario company that wanted to use, that owned a number of properties that used an N12 to evict a tenant in the intent that they would move one of the corporate director's children into the property. Now, I would have said that if I was the paralegal representing the landlord, there is no way, no how you're going to get away with this, right? And there is no way, no how you're going to get away with this because the N12 application is for people. It is, if you own a property, Dave, you can put your son in the property, or you can put your mother in the property, or you can put your wife's children in the property, or you can put a caregiver for any of those people in the property, right? You cannot, if you own it through a corporation, you set up your nice little tax dodge corporation, Dave's Deals Inc., and Dave's Deals owns the property. You can't evict on an N12, which is a personal use eviction.
Yeah. Well, the guy made a mistake trying to get rid of this lady that was there for 50-something years.
Yeah.
And I think it was a callous thing, of course.
Yeah.
Basically, what they're trying to do is just get rid of her, and so they can repurpose a room or charge more or whatever else. This is a very common thing.
Well, if she's been there,
any given landlord may have 12 sons they want into 12 different rooms and properties they own, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So will it hold though? Will they just kind of the person who was legally representing the company basically said it's not over, and they can what they'll probably do is just if they want it bad enough, just change the company's name and just make it the guy's property.
Oh, they can do that. But then what the other aspect is they're more likely to do is come back with a renovation eviction. They'll come back with an N13 and try to evict that way.
Yeah. And but it's already out there. It's very clear that won't work. Obviously, if they bring this up as an example, look, they try to get rid of her on this. Now they're trying to do the reno thing, get eviction on reno thing. It's very obvious they want her out. and she's been there for 54 years. We don't care. We're going to get her out, and we can get a lot more money for her apartment. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Our son is going to move in. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, but again, unless it's owned by a person, an individual, right? If an individual sits behind a corporation, or there is a corporation with,
you just said reno. They don't have to.
Renovation.
You have to be an individual for reno.
Renovation. No, you don't have to be. But with the renovation clause, you have to actually substantially change the rental unit.
Yeah, who checks that?
Oh, they go through this with a fine tooth comb. I have one coming up. And the landlord wants to repaint the kitchen ceiling.
That's it.
That's it, right?
And they want to evict the person for how long?
They want to evict them, full stop, on an N13 for repainting the kitchen ceiling, and they're not going to give them preferential. The terms very clear again on the N13. The renovation must be for a minimum period of 1 year. So they were going to be out for a year. How long is it going to take? Even an incompetent painter is going to paint the kitchen in a month, right?
Yeah, but it's got to be all kinds of loopholes. They'll say they did the renovation. Anybody comes back a year later or look at the renovation, check before and after. If it's supposed to be a major renovation, I doubt it. I doubt they have any amount of means to catch up on that.
Yeah.
And then if they do catch them breaking the rules, what are they going to do now? Well, you kick the person out for a year now, and you're going to let them come back? No. It's the landlord's got all the advantages. Anyway, what else we got?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're moving on. Yep. Next one. All right. Let's skip down. So seniors are facing eviction as private retirement homes are closing.
You must have gotten into an eviction mood here.
Well, I just happened to find this. These were not found at the same time. Essentially, what's happening here is 1,400 seniors
in Quebec
are actually evicted between October 23 and September 24, as 87 retirement homes were being shut down.
Private retirement
homes, yeah.
Okay, so the significance of that is when you're in a retirement home and you're in your 80s and somebody says, okay, you got to get out of here, where are you going to go? And and why are they allowing this to happen? Why is the federal government or the Quebec provincial government not really keeping an eye on this too well?
Yeah, and the campaigners are saying that this private retirement homes is a broken model.
Yes, as if.
And I get their argument. Their argument.
So the suggestion here is, why don't they let these properties transform into self-managed residence, either as a cooperative or a nonprofit organization? So basically, what was your point of putting this up there? Is it like just?
Well, there's been talk. Right, this is what has happened in Quebec. There have been many instances. We've got private retirement homes here in Ontario. There is a danger, of course, with anything about when you've got private retirement homes, of what happens if the company does go bankrupt.
Well, what will happen?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because, in fact, these could end up exactly the same way here in Ontario. Right?
Well, obviously the Quebec government, the Ontario government is different.
Yeah. We do have laws that providing it's an older property that's pre 2018, that we should have some eviction prevention laws, but they've been weakening over time.
So basically, you're saying here, you're giving as an example of Quebec, private retirement homes going bust, and then the residents have very little recourse in that situation, as it says here, and that this might happen in Ontario.
Yeah. Well, and the other interesting thing is about this is that the ministry responsible for seniors care in Quebec has actually not responded to CTV's request for an interview.
Yeah. So, well, probably because they don't have the answers. It's a little bit embarrassing for them. Particularly a journalist could say, well, look, you're just throwing these old people out in the cold. What are you going to do? You're saying you got to leave your retirement home. Well, that was supposed to be a retirement home until you went into the nursing home or until you started pushing up Daisy. So,
yeah.
But anyway, it could happen here. It's a good red flag for anyone out there that needs a retirement home to probably stay away.
How many? Most of them are private here in Ontario, anyway, aren't they?
Well, the one my mom's in it's owned by a company. Basically, it's a company that does residential. Yeah. That's what they're specialized in. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So it's not an individual own it. These private ones they're talking about here. I don't know. It looks like they messed up in Quebec somehow, but I'd have to get into it a little bit more to see what is different between Quebec and Ontario. Because right now you don't hear this in Ontario, you hear it in Quebec. So if we had the same system, you would assume that was happening here in Ontario as well.
Yeah, my concern is that it just leaves potential right now for leaving senior citizens out in the cold.
Okay, what else do we got?
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, archaeologists were stunned when they first opened this newly discovered Egyptian pyramid that was sealed 4,000 years ago. And this isn't a pyramid that they found in the normal area and the where the traditional pyramids are in Gaza. Giza. Gaza, not Gaza, Giza.
All right, not far from Cairo is Giza. And the reason why Giza is so famous, now let's put it this, there are a lot of pyramids out there. Yeah. There's a lot. The first ones were kind of, they're really pyramids. They were just kind of squarish platforms. And then they became more platforms, and so there was being a lot of experimentation in 2700 BC, basically, and they started it. So that's like a long time ago, 4,000.
And there's a few broken pyramids here as well, aren't there? Where
there's broken pyramids. There's the bent pyramid, the red pyramid.
Yeah.
So the pyramid at Saqqara. Now, the real famous ones are the ones at Gaza because they are the really big ones. That's when the Egyptians got it right. Yeah. After many, many tries, they got it right. Now, the other most significant one is the pyramid of Saqqara, which is the step pyramid, which was the very first successful pyramid made for King Zoser by his architect Imhotep. Now, there are others, though. The one of them, the most significant, is the red pyramid, where they finally got the dimensions right. It was a much smaller one, but it is the first smooth-sided pyramid that really works. Then they have one where they started steeply and then had to change course and then go change the pitch because they were going up.
That's the one they call the bent pyramid, isn't it?
Yeah. And then there's other smaller ones were made of clay, were much cheaper. But this particular one they're talking about now, there wasn't much left of it. And when they they found certain things that would indicate there might be something there. So this is a pyramid that doesn't look like a pyramid anymore. And what they did is they looked around and they found a secret passageway under what used to be the pyramid, likely a pyramid, and they found the tomb
a sealed tomb.
Yeah, a sealed tomb by the for Princess Hatshepsut. Now, it's very important here not to mix her up with Hatshepsut, Queen Hatshepsut, who came much later and was actually the pharaoh for the while. The only woman pharaoh in Egyptian history that we know of. And we know of her monuments. I've seen them myself. I've been there.
You forget Cleopatra.
Well, that was much later. It was after the Greeks really took over Egypt. So yeah, it was kind of a blend of.
But she was the last.
Cleopatra. I don't think you could call her a pharaoh as much as a ruler. She
had title pharaoh, but yeah, she's not like Ramesses.
Yeah, and Cleopatra comes much later. She comes like this particular Princess Hatshepsut.
This is at the time of the Romans, yeah.
Yeah, and Queen Hatshepsut was 1,400 years before Cleopatra. So I'm talking about a completely different era. And in any case, yeah, with Queen Cleopatra, that was the end of the Egyptian religion and pharaohs and all that other stuff. But it had really been much more transferred. It wasn't really even Egyptian back then. It was Greeks running the show.
Yeah, and Ptolemaic, under the Ptolemaic dynasty, that which happened for about 300 years, ending at about, I think this all ended in about 46 BC or something. And that's when...
It's very close to the... Very close to the year zero, basically.
Well, very close to...
had already been murdered. And,
yeah. I think it's the same time as the death as Julius Caesar.
Yeah, it was a while after that. It was a while after that, 10 or 15 years after that, I think. Maybe less. When
she was...
But anyway, let's get back to Princess Hatshepsut.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I brought that up, Queen Hatshepsut is not Princess Hatshepsut. Princess Hatshepsut lived 1,000 years before Queen Hatshepsut.
Yeah.
And she in the old dynasty. So what they did is they found her tomb, and just about every tomb in Egypt has been hit by the grave robbers. That's what made Pharaoh King Tutankhamun's gravesite so spectacular, even though it was a very small and modest grave for a boy king that died very young. Everything was intact. But the big major tombs, they were all robbed. And this was no difference. But the difference was, okay, Peter, tell them what the difference was.
The capstone was in place.
That's right. The seal was sealed. In this particular case, the tomb was looted and then resealed. So somebody got into the tomb and probably before it was all covered up, got all the gear out of it, and then happened to reseal it. So it's a real mystery. Was it an inside job, or was somebody just able to reseal it without anybody knowing it?
Yeah.
So there was no suspicion.
Yeah, and they were asking, was there a conspiracy within the Egyptian court?
Now, normally the tombs just got broken into, and the thieves just dispersed all over the place. They couldn't keep enough guards on the funeral areas or whatever. But in this particular case, it looks as if the thieves went in, broke the seal, got the gear out, put the seal back on, and allayed any suspicion that the tomb had been robbed. Probably because whoever robbed it knew they would have been a suspect.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most likely. And in fact, actually, then the whole question is, what do we know about this Princess Hatshepsut, other than the what would have been the hieroglyphs about her?
Yeah, nobody knew about her up until now. Up
Yeah.
until this discovery, nobody knew about her, which is rather shocking since she had such an elaborate burial. She had her own pyramid. That was extremely unusual for a princess. Maybe a queen could have one. Maybe, could have her own tomb. But this is back in the time of the pyramids, which is very old. So their records are not, of course, not complete. But who was this Princess Hatshepsut that must have been so well thought of that she got her own pyramid? She must have wielded some power, which would be rare back in those days.
Yeah, and maybe or she was a beloved. Maybe the other possibility that was going through my mind is maybe she was the beloved of some pharaoh, beloved child of some pharaoh who died in some horrible way.
It's hard to say. There were the tomb inscriptions, I don't think say anything like that, or at least not recorded that way.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably more that she was highly thought of.
Yeah.
Some princesses may have been part of the religions. I don't know. Back in those days, remember, this is a 3,000-year civilization.
Yep.
It began, and probably even longer than that. So you're thinking it was like 3000 BC to pretty much 0 AD. That is a long stretch of continuity, and was lots of different changes along the way, but it was
there are some people who say that the Egyptian Empire went back to about 10,000 BC.
It wouldn't have been an empire back then because it's
impossible. Maybe not an empire, but but again, there's history that potentially predates even the first dynasty.
Well, the whole Sahara Desert there was a grasslands, and they had hippos and giraffes and all that living in the Sahara. As the weather changed, it would have forced the people into those areas where there was water, and of course, one of the only water areas through the Sahara Desert is the Nile River. So and anyway, so I don't know. It's pretty interesting. If you're into Egyptology, I always find those things very, very interesting.
I too, especially when they find otherwise unknown grave. And there hasn't been new graves really discovered since the 20s, right?
Well, when Howard Carter found King Tut, he knew that there was a missing tomb somewhere.
He knew it was there.
Yeah, it somewhere in the Valley of the Kings, it had to be there. He went looking for it. He found it. But in this particular case, nobody knew who Princess Hatshepsut was.
Yeah. The other one, of course, it has been under a great deal of mystery, is there is people out there in Egypt right now that are looking for the grave of Cleopatra.
That might be a harder one because once the Romans got in there and they eliminated Egypt as at first it was kind of a client state of the Romans.
Yeah.
Once the Romans started to fight over it,
well, there was, because she married, as everybody knows, ended up marrying Mark Antony, and essentially, once the Romans fully invaded and conquered the land, there was no, her children did not become pharaoh, did not become king and queen.
Her children were probably killed. Like she had a child by Julius Caesar, and that child was probably executed.
That child was killed. Yes, she basically was trying to convince Julius Caesar of becoming an emperor. Right?
Well, yeah.
Before he actually tried to take that title, because he then took the title of dictator of Rome.
There's another name for that. Not dictator of Rome. It was something.
Yeah,
anyway, he was murdered by senators that worried that he would become the king. Basically, he would be a brand new king, and the Romans were thrown out the kings back in around 700 BC or something. Can't remember exactly when they became when they gave away kings and became a republic. But remember, that is Mark Antony and Augustus, or Octavian, whoever you wish, who was the adopted son of Julius Caesar. Now, Augustus, with his more than capable general Agrippa, took out Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and after that, the Romans did not want a chance having an independent client state, Egypt. They just marched right in and took over. It was a bit of a tough job for them. They were pretty brutal right up first, and they had trouble with the Nubians in the south too. But maybe we should go on to something else now.
Well, that's another story. But that's another story entirely. Yeah. Okay. So, we'll move on. Okay. So I got one comment about that. See whether, I wonder what the rent was. Yeah. Okay. That was probably dating back to our story on rent. I wondered that as well, Peter. Yeah, because in fact, if she's been there 50 years, the rent's probably quite low. It's probably about $600 or $700.
Yeah. So, and she's stuck on an income that's probably pretty low, though. Also,
yeah.
She said she was stuck on a fixed income, but I thought said she was a teacher, but fixed income and teacher doesn't go together. That didn't happen.
Well, a fixed income, yeah, but she's now on a fixed income as a pensioner.
No, that pension has a COLA on it.
I don't know. Depends
if
how
it's
long
a teacher's pension.
Don't know. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah. Okay, so what did Ford accomplish on his Washington trip? It's funny. Doug Ford came back with Quebec's Francois Legault and Saskatchewan's Scott Moe, and they've all been more or less said, "I'm not at liberty to say."
Yeah, it's very, very well. Okay, 11 of the 13 premiers went down there, so it's not just Doug Ford. Doug Ford, of course, is the leader, the current leader of the premiers. I guess the premiers that changes. They change the seat among the seniors or the premiers getting all together. It's Doug Ford's turn to be the spokesperson for the premiers. So of course he was the head. He was probably the most important premier down there because he speaks for the rest of them in many ways. But 11 of the 13 went down to Washington on a quickly made up meeting, and they met a couple of officials. Doug Ford, prior to meeting someone from, had a kind of a get together where he made a presentation to convince Trump pundit or Trump supporters or Trump workers that this was a bad idea about the tariffs. But that meeting, according to this article, was mostly just full up with Canadians, Canadian lobbyists, Canadians press. There wasn't too many Americans in it, which is probably a little bit embarrassing. Didn't attract too many Americans to that meeting. But anyway, he went off his presentation, and then he went off to meet with certain officials. He didn't say who they were, but one of the other premiers blabbed it out. I don't know why he thought it should have been having some secrecy. What we do know is Trump's got everybody jumping through hoops.
Yeah,
he's
This was supposed to be delivering an anti-tariff message to two senior staff who worked directly for Trump.
Yeah, I don't even think they got a chance to talk to Howard Lutnick, and he's the big wheel. He's the guy that's going to be he's the tariff king. Trump is tariff crazy. He's trying to find a way of making tariffs work, but the aluminum steel tariff didn't work the last time he tried it. Now he's touting his reciprocal tariffs, which means every country that has a tariff on the U.S., they will indeed have a tariff on them. That's counter to what the United States has done in the past. They wouldn't put a tariff on a developing country, but put up with the tariff from the developing country. So the U.S. that was part of the U.S. policy to help more sort of third worldish countries get on their feet. They allowed them to protect their own industries by putting up a tariff on American or other goods, and the Americans put up with that, and so did probably many of the Western countries, so they could protect their own burgeoning industries. But now that's all different. He wants to do a reciprocal tariff on everyone in the world, any country that has any tariff whatsoever on the United States. So you could say, well, that's fair. But this particular one, the steel and aluminum, it is against the rules of NAFTA, but he gets around it by saying it's essential to U.S. defense. So if these materials are essential to U.S. defense, that we have to make them here. The way to motivate making them here is to put tariffs on steel and aluminum so that our own industry grows. It's a matter of defense. That's a big lie, of course, but he can make the case that that's why it's for, and that's why he can use the executive order rather than go through the USMCA agreement. Mexico tells the United States that you're doing this illegally according to our agreement.
Yeah,
we haven't said that yet, but that is what he's doing. It's contrary to the agreement that he made himself.
Yeah,
that Trump made himself.
And Randy and Chippewa is asking why on earth we're jumping through loops every time Trump throws something out there that shows the fear in our elected officials.
Yeah, there's a fear worldwide, and everybody hasn't got used to Trump yet. Remember, Trump likes theater and drama, and he likes picking on people that are weaker than him. That's what he does. He's a bully. Oh yeah, and like we'll see what happens when he comes face to face with China, when he's actually up against something a little more muscle. So basically what Trump does is he likes to bully. He likes a lot of theater. He likes to get people jumping through hoops. And we are not used to that now. And we know that a lot of, unfortunately, I think a lot of our politicians think a lot of this is contingent on Trump's ego, and they don't want to get on the wrong side of that ego because he might do something stupid, really stupid, and he'll cut off his nose to spite his face. And he'll do that because you've bruised his ego. So I think that's why everybody's sort of tiptoeing around him a bit. But basically, he's going to hurt his own economy if he goes this way with aluminum and steel. And he'll have targeted tariffs of his own. But he might give that up if the reciprocal tariffs he's talking about actually gets anywhere. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Trump is desperate.
This is Project 20. If you ever know about Project 2025, this is pretty much what the Trump administration is doing right now is pretty much in Project 2025. You could make that case.
Yeah. Okay. Trump is desperate. They are $36 trillion in debt. We all failed to miss this. Says Mike. Just sit tight and let these tariffs make US poor and the people will freak.
Well, tariffs just another way of taxing the people.
Well, free market versus planned economy. We should have seen this coming.
Well, this is just Trump's way of like he's promised relief on taxes, all this. This is just his way of trying to get other countries to pay for his debt. That's what he wants everybody to see it as. But basically, when they put up tariffs, it's the American people that are being taxed. Basically, they're the ones that have to pay the increased cost of goods made. But that's just a clever way of making it look like the external. Like he's really got people confused down there. They don't understand how tariffs go. I've seen a few interviews on TV where the American public really thinks that China and Canada are going to pay the United States 25% to let their product come into the country. It's, of course, the American people, the buyers that are going to do that. Plus, there could be revolts here. The auto industry has said that it might refuse to pay those tariffs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because in fact, those, when it comes to the auto industry, as we were talking about, those machine parts, those parts, those, first of all, the steel crossing the border in both directions for various parts of that auto industry. There's parts crossing the border in both directions for that as part of that auto industry, and those all go together for building, building engines, building cars, building blocks, and those bits cross the border at almost at ease, don't they?
Well, we talked about this many times. Yeah. There's exactly the same thing you're talking about. We've mentioned that many times, and the auto manufacturers have said that they might not just pay the tariff, might just revolt. And I think the problem we have here with Trump is he's got everybody, every Republican is a lackey of Trump's right now.
Yeah,
they don't have the guts to criticize him,
to point out
even if they think he's doing something wrong. None of them have a backbone to face up to him because they're afraid of him. This doesn't look good. If you have a whole party and everyone in that party is afraid of you and afraid to say anything, then democracy is not going to work too well. Yeah, and right now the Dems are very, very weak. They came out of a very, very weak showing in the election. They put up a weak candidate. They're flailing about, where Trump appears to be doing a lot. Right now, this is going to be the strongest time Trump will ever have because he's got a very weak Democratic Party. He's got a bunch of lackeys under him that are in the Republican Party that are afraid to say anything. So right now, this is his most powerful moment.
Yeah.
A little later on, there might be a bit of fight back, and I expect that Trump will have his way for about a year. Then there will be blowback.
Yeah, there will be blowback because people will then realize how tariffs work.
Well, not only that, but all the other things he's done. He's doing Israel's dirty work in Gaza. Yep. He's saying, "Oh, we're going to be real humanitarians here. You can't possibly live in all that rubble. Oh, you poor Palestinians." So what we're going to do is we're going to force you out and make a little place for you to live in some desert somewhere, and then we're going to take over Gaza and make it the Riviera. But basically, what nudge, wink, wink. Oh my! Look, we just gave it to Israel by accident. Nothing we could do about that. So he's doing Israel's dirty work for him, and that's not going down well. He's abandoned Ukraine almost entirely. So a lot of these things may not go well moving forward. He's also abandoned NATO, basically, which I don't know. He's pretty much said, "You defend yourselves. We're out of here. We're still part of NATO, but you gotta defend yourself. We got China to worry about. We're going to concentrate over there."
So basically, Mike Cushman's saying, "Don't worry, Baron Trump will take over the throne and continue the madness."
Yeah, well, that's what I'm very afraid of. When the Roman Republic died, it was when Augustus took over and became the first emperor, and then thereafter, Rome was not a republic anymore; it was an empire. If Trump is allowed to run in 2028, then the republic is on its way out, just like it was in Rome.
Yep. All right. And okay. Moving on, Gwen Dyer is basically saying we've forgotten the history. Have we forgotten the history lessons when it comes to war?
Yeah, this is a really good one by Gwen Dyer. He's shown the cycles of war. He talks about people, civilization in a linear fashion, how we were hunter-gatherers, then we were in small groups, and then bigger areas. And as we went along, generally speaking, the casualties of war went down. When we were small groups, we fought a lot. 30% of all our males and 5% of all our females would die in war, because each different group, family group, or clan was constantly competitive for the resources around. Then as we moved into later eras, it was just a small group of people that did the warring, the pharaohs, the knights, the feudal knights, so
the Roman legions.
Yeah, so they were the ones that doing fighting. Like, it sounds big, but largely they were largely the people were left alone while this was all happening. Then he talks about the 30 Years' War, which was just one big mad fest slaughter that took 12% of the people of Europe died in that particular war. It frightened everybody, he says, and thereafter they started having rules of war.
8 million people died. 8 million people died in that war,
which counted for 12% of the population of Europe, which was insane. So, the first, anyway, it was comparable. It was worse than the First World War in casualties per population. But of course, it lasted 30 years, not 4. But and then he goes on, that scared enough people, and then the Napoleonic Wars was kind of like a world war, and so on and so forth. And then he says that, little by little, we're trying to reduce the amount of people that are dying in wars. And since the end of Second World War, very few people comparatively have been dying in wars. It may sound like a lot when we see Ukraine and Gaza.
He's saying 45 million. Oh, sorry, 45 million in World War II. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so since World War II, the amount of deaths have gone down drastically in wars. And to us, it might sound like a lot. People getting killed in Sudan and Mali and the Congo and M23 and all these. The Gaza, of course, was a big massacre, and Ukraine is a continuing massacre. So it sounds to us like there's a lot of people dying, but compared to the population of the earth, no. But what he's warning about here, it seems to be a shift towards more militancy. It seems to be a shift going back to where wars are going to be solving our problems. And if we're not careful, we are going to have some major conflagrations. Right now, we have the China-U.S. thing going on. We have Russia still is unsettled. There's a lot of potential there. And when Iran, of course, we have a lot of nuclear countries right now. And a lot of this agitation has come up because the United Nations, who's supposed to stop wars, as he points out here, is not working very well because they have too much veto power. So the people who are really trying to have a voice here are overridden by the veto, like what Israel does constantly, and it's constantly vetoed by the U.S.
Yeah.
They could have everybody, I think 90 out of 100 something countries voted against what Israel was doing, and the U.S. vetoed it. The Security Council, 11 out of the 12 voted against Israel when it was doing this Gaza thing, and the U.S. vetoed it.
Yeah.
So it's not really a democratic process, and it's more of a club for those people.
And the veto has actually been, for the veto to be only one nation recently has been unusual, because in fact, back in the 70s and even in the 80s, veto power used to involve five, usually would involve Britain, US, Britain, and France would vote together.
Yeah, and that was when they were mostly voting against the USSR and its minions,
or China. Yeah.
Well, China came along later, and China got the veto power itself much later as well.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
and they had to give it to China because they were afraid of Mao.
Yeah, and I think he's right to some extent. The nature of war has changed, although I think he's kind of made some quite big periods into some small little sentences. So there are some exceptions to his history of war, right? Because there are some oddities that stand out. Can't think of individual examples, but as you were reading them, I'm thinking, well, that applies in general, but not here.
I don't know. Well, the general movement is what he's talking about. I think just about everything he's talking about here is very applicable. He wrote a really good article here, and he's written. I think a little while ago we had an article by Quindire, again an opinion piece, where he indicated this same thing in part of at least part of the article. Now he says. He says the keystone of the system to prevent and limit wars and the spread of warfare was the United Nations, was crippled long ago by rival vetoes, but now the foundations are being dug up and cast aside. You got a guy like Trump. He doesn't like NATO. He doesn't like the United Nations. He doesn't want to pay for the United Nations anymore. He doesn't want to pay for NATO. And yet, it was the U.S. rules-based order that set that all up. It was their idea, basically. Everyone followed along. Trump could get us into a major war by what he's doing here, and he is actually allowing, he wants to be territorial. He sees that China has eyes on Taiwan. China says it wants to invade Taiwan by 2027. I think that date may have moved up to 2029 now. But China's told the whole world we're going to invade in 2027 and continues to harass the island hourly by flyovers and incidents of one kind or another. So it's made very clear. We don't know if the United States and China have made a deal saying, okay, we'll give you Taiwan and you give us Greenland, basically, or let us take Greenland and Canada, and you can have, and then you can take Taiwan. Trump is talking more and more like an imperialist, and he says he's going to take Greenland, whether he has to take troops up there or not. There's no indication that he's going to ask the Greenlanders if they like that or not. Too bad. And when he says he's going to annex Canada, he doesn't say anything about a referendum. No, he's going to force Canada to join them through economic force. You see, the whole idea of democracy and rules-based order is flowing out the door just by his rhetoric. How seriously and how capable he's able to do that, I don't know. And that's what he puts here too. He says, that is the rule which is now being ignored by the greatest power in the system. Russia can claim the old border of Soviet-included Ukraine, and China can at least claim ethnic link with Taiwan. But Donald Trump demanding to take over Greenland, the Panama Canal, Canada, and the Gaza Strip is empire building of the crudest sort.
Absolutely, it's empire building of the crudest type. But in fact, I think he wants to control. I think he wants to control the whole of North America between the Panama Canal and Greenland.
Well, he did. He would like to annex Canada, but he wouldn't want to annex Mexico.
I'm not saying no.
The population is too big, and that would be too much problems for him. But Canada is pretty much a big empty space full of goodies. Of course, he wants to annex us.
Yeah, I remember, Dave. I said control. I didn't say annex. I said control.
Well, they already do. The Manifest Destiny made sure that no other European power meddled in the Western Hemisphere. And that's pretty much being it. We've been pretty much controlled by the U.S. economically, probably from about the early 1900s on. And so they already have been controlling us economically. And there's nothing much we can do. And they got a big army. We don't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, why they didn't crush us after the Civil War is because they had ethics. They were a democracy. They weren't going to go about do something like that. But if the situation was now, they just come out of a civil war, Trump would have sent them up north to take us as well.
Okay. All right. One final, I think, episode for today. The Niagara Regional Police is falling short of a 30% women representation goal for frontline police officers.
I'm not so sure we could talk about this in just a few minutes, but it's what police forces all around have had trouble and getting women into their force. Now, unfortunately, they use the word to diversify the force, and as a means of diversifying. But in this particular case, it doesn't have the sort of woke overtones. They want to diversify because women are important in policing. They find women are better negotiators. People are more willing to negotiate with women when you have a domestic going on. A male cop and other male may get in each other's face. They're better at negotiating, that kind of thing. They want women's representation on the force because obviously they're going to be women arrested, and it's going to be women involved in crimes, all kinds of things. So in order to service your population that is half women, it is a good idea to have at least 30% of your force women, but they're having trouble recruiting women to the job.
Yeah. And remember here, we're talking frontline officers. These are the people that are on the streets doing the work, not the people who are in the back rooms recording statistics and things like that. In the back rooms, they've always had a lot of women dealing with, you go into a police station, it's often women that are at the front desk.
Well, in construction jobs where I'm from, when women join the construction crews, almost inevitably they ended up in the safety jobs where they didn't have to. The jobs were involved safety equipment and stuff like that because after a while they couldn't take the physical demands of the job, so they got there was a job for them, the safety things. In this particular case, you don't want your woman officer in a brawl, in a bar brawl.
Yeah, but you want them on the front line because you want them to be able to negotiate that family, and it's, I think that statement, what you said earlier on about women having a better way of negotiating in family disputes, that's an important factor why women need to be on the front line.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think in this article, Birchway, which is the old woman's place, dumb new name for the woman's place, anyway, they're actually chime in here and say something about how important it is to have women on the force. So women seem to be able to have an easier time in negotiations and stuff like that. Of course, women can investigate any crime as well as any man. Women can, but if it comes to a bar brawl or a fight with a bunch of bikers, they're going to get hurt. So I think you still have to worry about where you're sending.
Well, yeah, but you see, for example, for example, a £100 woman who's been trained in subduing, suspects. I wouldn't like to come up against, you come up against her in a bar brawl, you're going to go down probably, even if you are twice her weight.
Nope.
I think you will. I think you
Absolutely
will.
Not.
Skilled.
You're kidding me? Skilled. You said a 100-pound woman. You coming up against a 200-pound biker. She ain't got no chance.
But she will know when to duck and weave when he doesn't.
None. No, she starts to fight bikers. You go like this all she wants. She'd be pushed away like this. Don't give me that rubbish, man.
No, he will go down. I assure you, he
not
will.
Not unless she takes out her taser and hits him right in the balls. He ain't going down.
Well, that's always a possibility. The taser in the balls, yeah.
All right. So what? Now it says here, with more than 6,000 domestic violence calls last year, the services provided by police officers are definitely required, but increased gender diversity. Now, unfortunately, they put the gender diversity thing on it. How about just more women? Because it gives it that woke sound, which is not woke in this particular case. Among officers might also help shift the culture, maybe make responses a little bit different. Yeah, basically what they're saying that in these counseling, of course, you're going to have women involved in crimes. You're going to have prostitutes. You're going to have prostitutes beat up. You're going to have prostitutes, of course, ripping off people. So there's going to be women in crime and victims of crime. So if you have a rape victim, do you really want some burly cop coming up? Hey, here, take a swab of your vagina with this so we can get some evidence. No, you want the other woman to woman kind of thing. You're going to have some sort of, a woman to meet a woman, basically. Now, men obviously commit most of the crimes, 9 times as many as women. There are 9 times as many men in prison than there are women.
Yeah.
Most obviously, male.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to ask a question here. I'm going to ask a question here, Dave. Are courts more lenient on women?
I have no idea. I would expect so. But now that you have women judges, I don't think that women would have too much of a. I don't think women judges would be any softer.
The only reason I asked the question, because one time I heard a judge say women don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah, we still have that chauvinism. We do not want. One of the reasons Lizzie Borden got away with murdering her parents is because men didn't want to believe that a woman could do that. And nobody wanted to put a woman to execution. That seemed to, even if they were guilty, they still were very reluctant to put women to execution. So but then again, I don't know. But basically what the Niagara Regional Police want is basically a female presence out there. We find it in Europe quite a bit. You find female officers walking around quite confidently in places like Germany and Holland and places like that. They write up tickets, but basically in those areas too that you have much less crime too. So that may be another reason. Like if you get, as I said, women can give out tickets as good as anyone else. Come to domestic disputes. But if you got a big burly guy in a domestic dispute, throwing things around and outraged, you're still going to have males there. The woman would have to be there more as a negotiator.
Yeah, women might well make good negotiators. Women also might well make very good detectives.
Yeah, yeah, of course, and all those other places, of course. But where a lot of violent crime happens, it's men that's doing it, and we still have to be very careful how you put a woman officer in a situation like that.
You're not going to put a woman officer in a situation like that, generally speaking, where there's, they might well be tidying up around the edge, but not in the actual middle of a fight. No.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
But with pepper spray and tasers and things like that, that equals the field a bit.
Yeah. All right. I think we can kind of end it there.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. Oh, pray a lightning bolt hits Trump.
Oh, we don't do that.
Not to kill him, just to hit him in the head and shock him into sense.
We don't do that sort of thing here, Dave.